What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. We're going to try to give you some quick updates while we're here in the off season. Not a whole lot of stuff going on, but we did get 3 transfers to come to UCLA within the last week. We got Bruins at the Combine. Joining me as a frequent guest, you've seen him on Draft is in Session. You have seen him on the Bruin Bible many of times. My friend and your favorite, Jamal Madni, in the cut. Madman, what is going on, brother?
Will, the thrill, great to be here again and chat with you about our beloved Bruins. You know, lots going on.
Dude, so much is going on right now for the Bruins. We got the spring practices starting up about in the next few weeks. We got a pro day for UCLA on the 15th, and then we got the spring game happening in April. But before then, we have some transfers rolling in, and most notably, it is the twin brothers, Gabriel and Grayson Murphy, that transferred from North Texas. I took another look at these guys, and these guys are pretty special edge rushers, kind of exactly what the Bruins needed on defense, given the fact that we lost Mitchell Agude, we lost Miles Jackson, both to the transfer portal. And I looked up the sacks. These guys are just kind of built different. One had 8.5 sacks, the other had 7.5. And I know North Texas is, not the biggest school, but that's still Division I competition they're playing against. Kind of give me your thoughts on these guys, because when I was really diving into it, and shout out our friends All Bruin at SI, they were looking at USC, Nebraska, Penn State, and they chose UCLA. I mean, this is a big win for the Bruins. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Gabriel and Grayson Murphy, man.
Will, no question about it. I mean, you talk about 3 years, Division I football, Conference USA, 90 tackles, 15.5 sacks combined last season. And so even if you put any sort of a discount factor on that, when you say, okay, Conference USA to the Pac-12, I mean, we're talking about significant production, but we're also talking about them being interchangeable with one another. You're basically getting elite pass rushing for every snap of a football game. And when you talk about UCLA and what was the big concern over the last couple of weeks, especially after we continue to sort of mourn the loss of Mitchell Agude, which really hurt my heart, and others, was that, how can we shore up the defensive line? And I think this is another rousing success for Chip and UCLA to be able to bolster up that defensive line. Will, I think a lot of people don't realize just how close UCLA is to really preeminent success. I mean, when you sort of break down the 8-4 record last year, I think in Chip's mind, he basically just wants to be able to retool the defense and sort of replace the athletes with athletes and keep the same scheme with McGovern and Ozanero, because I think in his mind, he says, look, we're 8-4. 3 of those 4 losses, Will, were really, I think in Chip's mind, more about the offense and bad individual play than anything structurally wrong defensively. When you talk about that Oregon game, lost by 3, UCLA had the ball at the end there with the chance to tie or win. DTR gets hurt, and, we're sort of in a tough spot there. But that's kind of a 50-50 game where I think in Chip's mind, the offense had the ball with a chance to win. When you look at the Arizona State game, it was down 9. There was a 4th and 1 from the 2 in that game. You punch that in. It's a 1-point game with the entire fourth quarter to play at home. That's a very winnable ball game from an offensive perspective. And really, there were just sort of gashing holes in the secondary there. There wasn't anything schematically wrong there. There was individual play where there was a breakdown. And then when you look at the Fresno State game, losing by 3, but those last 2 possessions of that game, 3rd and 19, 3rd and goal from the 19, there were sort of 3rd and 26s that were getting converted. That was just bad individual play. And so I think from Chip's perspective, if you can just sort of run it back with guys that know their roles, and we can sort of plug in the misses and the departures with athletes and guys just playing fundamentally sound football. If guys just played fundamentally sound defensively last year, it is not out of the question to say UCLA was an 11-1 team last year. And I think that's really what Chip's thinking is. And so the Murphy twins really sort of fill that gap by Agude, and hopefully we don't miss a beat.
These guys are just productive players, like you were saying too. I mean, combined with both of them, they both had 4 fumbles total. I mean, this is exactly what you're looking for from edge rushers to come in. And I just want to commend Chip, and I know we've done this in the past on this podcast. The UCLA recruiting standards are difficult. It's hard to get good players in here with the grade point average that you need. But like you've said many of times, Madman, for that transfer portal, it's a lot different. You can get guys in that have, already qualified in college courses and the grade point average isn't as high. And just combining that with getting some of these 4-star recruits as well as instant impact players. I mean, we've seen this with Charbonnet coming in last year, Jen Markeith, Ale Cahow, who I feel is going to be a big time player for this program this coming year. Chip Kelly, you just got to tip your cap. And I think given the circumstances, he is doing everything he can to make UCLA a competitive team year in and year out. And bringing back a Dorian Thompson-Robinson and continuing to have Charbonnet with some of these guys. We've had 10 transfers come in that are going to be competing for playing time, with the likes of Jake Bobo. We even got the Rutgers offensive tackle, Raekwon O'Neal, which was sorely needed, by the way, because Alec Anderson's leaving. And then Sean Ryan, who we're going to get to in his combine, he's gone as well. So, I mean, it's just really impressive what he's doing. Give me your thoughts on just how good of a job Chip has done in the transfer portal, because nationally, I don't feel like it's getting the attention it deserves.
It's not, Will, and it's a shame. It's unfortunate. And I think this is where Chip's lack of media savvy, I think, hurts him. He doesn't really play the public relations politics game as such. I mean, you have to understand, this is a 3.0 GPA, and 80% of UCLA's high school class has to have a 3.0 GPA. That is a very tall order when you talk about the NCAA standards being a 2.3. And, that's 0.7 difference in GPA. The only other school that is close in terms of a comparable is Stanford. When you talk about Notre Dame, you talk about Vanderbilt, you talk about Duke, you talk about some of these other schools, because they're private, they can make concessions in the athletic department to sort of waive some of those requirements, and there isn't a mandate. There's a holistic admissions review. The UCLA and the UC bylaws are very clear about the 3.0 GPA. And so it is very limiting in terms of what you can do. But through the transfer portal, that requirement only applies to high school students. And so if you can sort of be in a competitive position your freshman year, sophomore year at the university level, now you have this pipeline into UCLA, and Chip has done an absolutely masterful job of reaching out to individuals that not only want to excel on the field, but want to excel in the classroom, want to excel socially, want to excel in the community and with service and just with academic excellence. And I think Chip has done an absolutely masterful job of that. I mean, think about a school like Stanford and how much they struggle and how much they have struggled the last few years on the field when they don't get the diamond in the rough Christian McCaffrey or the Andrew Luck. Stanford's struggling to be bowl eligible and relevant year over year. And Chip's got his winning percentage climbing every year over the last 4 years and every year that he's been here. And so for all the naysayers with Chip out there, we have to sort of understand the unique challenges it is to be the UCLA coach, and nobody has figured it out in the modern era yet. And so, but the guy who has sort of cracked this code in a repeatable way is Chip Kelly.
And, Chip Kelly has done such a special job. We're very thrilled to have him as Bruins fans. I just want to say Duke has also become kind of a feeder school. I'm looking through these transfer guys. We got Jeff Ferris, the tight ends coach. We got Jake Bobo, who might be the best transfer of them all in this class that we got. And then we got Gary Smith III, defensive lineman, 24 tackles, two and a half tackles for a loss. He's essentially coming in, replacing a guy like Otito Ogbania, right? Just plug him in and play. He's got experience at the Division I level. I mean, this is just what you're looking for, man. And, we got 10 more transfers coming in. I think there's a couple guys that aren't talked about enough, like Azizi Hearn is a cornerback that's played 13 plus games for Wyoming. The guy that I'm incredibly high on, is Darius Muasu, this linebacker for Hawaii, man. And Hawaii's a Division I school. 13 games, 109 tackles, 7 sacks, a pick, 5 forced fumbles in a year. Like, this dude is going to come in and play right away and has the experience and the stats to back up that this guy can ball out. Pac-12 is a little bit different, but football is football. It's Division I trust him coming into this scheme and making plays, man. So Chip has done a masterful job in the transfer market to go with the recruiting and has mastered effectively how to be successful at UCLA, because it's not an easy job to put a winning product out for UCLA, given these standards that they have year in and year out. Is up, Bruin Bible listeners. We interrupt this podcast to bring you our new deal that we have. We are excited to announce that we have partnered with a number of different sports books to give you the best options for all your betting needs. For our California listeners, betus.com is the perfect place to bet on the NFL draft, the NBA, or any sport that you are interested in. Get a 125% bonus on your first deposit with our link. If you live in a betting state, then be sure to check out our deal with DraftKings, FanDuel, or BetMGM. Plenty of free money out there with your first free deposit. In order to get our special deal, you have to type in Bruin Bible. You have to click on the link located in the description or go to LAFB betting offers. Win big with these amazing promotions and bet safely. Now back to the podcast. We had some Bruins in the Combine, my man, and there's one guy we got to start with. You know how big I am on our boy Greg Dulcich. Like, if there's a poster on my wall, like if I had one athlete with a poster on my wall, it's freaking Greg Dulcich, man. Like, this is the dude of all dudes. Really showed out at the Combine. You know, ran a 4.7 flat in the 40 time, did the gauntlet drill, and I'm watching this live. It was really cool to kind of see it. Daniel Jeremiah goes, that's the best guy we've had in the gauntlet drill, period. You know, did some other things really well, met with some teams, including the Chargers, who I'm, secretly hoping he goes to, because that means big things for LA Football Network. Greg Dulcich is now Daniel Jeremiah's #1 tight end on his board after this week. And I think that's a testament to guys like me and you who were calling this long before, the Combine or the draft process started. Give me your take on Dulcich and how he helped himself at the Combine.
Well, he enabled himself to no longer be the best kept secret in the NFL draft. And he was seamless in terms of his 40 time. He was seamless in terms of, the hand drills, the ball catching skills, the catch radius. He just did an absolutely phenomenal job. And I'm actually reminded, Will, of the very first time I was on this show with you about 8 months ago. And I remember we got on, it was sort of a late night, and I was flying in from Denver. And I remember you said, and this is all credit to you, my man, you said that this guy is a legitimate Mackey Award candidate. And you said that on, the 25th of August last year. And, we sort of saw it in flashes. I think his real coming out party, Will, was the 2020 USC game.
Yes.
When he was, those seam routes and his ability to get yards after the catch against some really great athletes. Hufanga was on the field that night for SC. There were some big-time NFL guys on that field, and Dulcich not only held his own, but went for a $175 and really carved it up yards after the catch. And so we got a taste of him then, and then when you sort of transfer it over into the 21 season, he was so clutch in key situations over the course of the year. I think our only gripe was that Chip didn't use him enough, and he was a little bit too much of a decoy. But his ability to catch, his ability to get open, his yards after the catch ability are all absolutely phenomenal. I think that where the natural evolution will be for him is in both kind of the pass blocking, run blocking game, being able to sort of get into routes off of chips, be able to sort of hold a block and then break for a route for a catch. But those are all nuanced things that will come. This is a guy that, you're talking about an absolute game changer. And when you look at the landscape of the NFL, today was a historic day, Will. in terms of the franchise tag. First time in NFL history that we had 3 tight ends franchise tag ever.
Yeah.
And sort of really tells you what people are thinking about the tight end position, where A, it's really valuable, but B, you're also trying to catch that right wave of being able to sign a guy for long-term value. And when you put the intersection of those 2 circles together, you know what you get? You get Greg Dulcich. And so, he's going to be a really strong contributor to a borderline star in the NFL.
Absolutely. And what I said on Ryan's podcast last week, this guy averaged 19 yards a catch in 2020, 17.3 in 2021. Find me another tight end around the country, period, that's getting big of plays on average. Greg Dulcich is an absolute stud. Really excited to see what he can do at the next level. Another guy that balled out, Kyle Phillips. He ran a 4.5 flat, which I was very high on. And I know that might not be mind-blowing stats when you're constantly looking at the 4.3s, 4.2s. Cooper Kupp ran like a 4.65. And that's a guy that he has been routinely compared to throughout the draft process. I think you can't really compare Cooper Kupp. He's kind of a unicorn, but I am very high on a guy like Kyle Phillips. We've talked about him many of times. Led the Bruins in catches the last 3 years. Did his thing at the Combine. He came there, didn't blow it out of the water in any other drills, but the 4.5 stands out to me, knowing that he's fast enough to play at the NFL level. Give me your thoughts on Phillips, man, because this guy has raised his stock significantly throughout the draft process. If you listen to Draft is in Session, we talked about his Shrine Bowl performance. Kyle Phillips, man, he showed enough to get the job done at the next level, and I'm excited, man. Give me your thoughts on Kyle Phillips.
Will, a couple of things there. I think that, Phillips did the lion's share of his work during the All-Star season and really sort of showed out in that capacity. I think the 4.5 was a time that I think we sort of all expected him to run in that neighborhood. And while we're sort of on the soapbox of 40 time, Will, it's the most overrated stat in the NFL evaluation
100%.
process. I mean, watching a guy in basketball shorts, from a dead stop, sort of keeled over and then run as fast as you can, on the sound of a gun is the most archaic thing. And, how do you actually translate that onto an NFL field with pads, with the ability to make cuts and get open? I have absolutely no idea. I'm an engineer. I have 4 engineering degrees. I can't explain to you the translatability of the physics there. I really can't. The real key stat that you have to sort of be worried about, as an NFL evaluator is how open can a guy get? And that's really about the ability to make cuts and the ability to accelerate between 15 meters and 40 meters. That, if you could actually time that piece of it, that actually is the most relevant than is the 40 time. Having said that, I think Phillips did everything that he needed to do. And I want to sort of highlight another thing, Will. Both Phillips and Dulcich, and I know we're going to be talking about Sean Ryan, all 3 of those guys absolutely balled out at various stages in the postseason from an evaluation draft standpoint. And I think it's another opportunity to commend Chip Kelly. These are guys that have been in the program 3 years, 4 years. Look how they've developed. These guys are all going to be quality NFL players. And they've come from the same system over the last 3 or 4 years. And Phillips, to me, just fills the need of the NFL today. That great slot receiver, the guy who's going to get 7 to 10 yards, the guy who's going to be able to move the chains. Tell me an NFL team that can't use that. I mean, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, San Diego Chargers. The list goes on and on and on of folks that could use that chain mover. The vaunted 2007 New England Patriots, often regarded as one of the great teams of all time. Randy Moss got all the buzz on that team. He broke all the records, as he should. Randy Moss is incredible. But, who was on the other side of Randy Moss was Wes Welker. And, Phillips is sort of in that mold, of the Welker, the Edelman, Cole Beasley, dare I say flashes of Mr. Cooper Kupp. He's going to find a home in the NFL, a great home, and he's going to have a 10-plus year career in the NFL.
And it was really funny. The people at the Combine were pestering him because they saw him talking to some Patriots representative. Shocker. A white slot receiver going to the Patriots. Who would have thought about that? That is the oldest trick in the book that happens in New England with your Danny Amendolas, your Edelmans, your Wes Welkers, you name it. He'd be a perfect fit there for a guy like Mac Jones. Young quarterback, needs a security blanket, makes plays. But you touched on a really great point. I think one of the, allures for recruits and, transfers to come to Chip Kelly is he does have that NFL experience. Whether you want to argue was a success or not, he still has a ton of connections in the league. And, you look at this new staff, Bill McGovern, I'm not crazy about the hire, but this guy was a linebackers coach and a defensive analyst for many of years in the NFL, over a decade plus. Ken Norton Jr. was a defensive coordinator in the NFL, period. Like, that is one of the best hires UCLA has made in a long time. You just have these guys that know what it takes to get to the next level. You can go into their living rooms. Hey, your dream is to be an NFL player. Guess what? I know what it takes to get there. I know what the day in, day out schedule is like. I know how to prepare you to be there. Come follow me. You do everything right. Hey, there's a chance your name gets called on draft day. And if I'm a recruit looking at some of these other schools, and maybe I don't have the SCs, Ohio States, kind of those under the radar recruits. By the way, more than half of the draft picks are like 3-star recruits to begin with. Like, why not go to UCLA? You know what I mean? Because you have that opportunity to really make a jump with this coaching staff that primes you for the next level. I love my Bruins. Just got to throw that out there. And I do want to touch on another thing you said. The Combine is very pointless for me to begin with. As long as you're not, outdoing your times by like a significant amount. Like if Kyle Phillips ran like a 4.9, like that's concerning. But as long as you're kind of in that pocket of like 4.4 to like 4.6, you just need to like do it. And Ryan described it as like an SAT test. Like as long as you're not getting like the lowest score imaginable or, something like that, you'll be fine. Like you just got to nail the interview process, which for me, I believe is the most important part of it because it shows who you are, your character, how hard you're going to work when you get there, kind of your background, how you would fit in with this certain team. Those are all more important to me because let's face it, everyone at the Combine can play in some capacity football. It's just a matter of fit and how you're going to incorporate yourself into that roster. So Combine, I completely agree. And the funniest Combine stat.
You brought up a great point, if I may, just on the Ken Norton Jr. piece. If I may just interject on that one.
Please, my man.
So many critiques of UCLA football, obviously our Chip's inability to recruit. I think Ken Norton Jr. has the ability to be UCLA's coach. And I think that there is an opportunity here to really groom him in that capacity. There's the famous story, Will. I know you're an NBA guy. Summer of 2010, Pat Riley trying to recruit LeBron to come to Miami. And you know what he does? He's basically takes out a bag of his rings and he literally just flips the bag over and come out 6-7 rings from his Laker days, playing days, GM days to show LeBron, this is what I'm about. And Ken Norton Jr. is a guy who can do something similar. When you talk about the only player in NFL history to ever play on 3 consecutive Super Bowl championship teams, he was on the Aikman, Smith, Michael Irvin great teams. He was on the Steve Young, Jerry Rice, great teams with Ricky Waters. Then you sort of fast forward, he was on Pete's staff for the iconic Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendale White years. And then he was on Carroll's staff for the iconic Legion of Boom days. And so when you're talking about 4 very distinctly great teams, iconic teams that anyone, even if you're super young, you can sort of relate with and empathize with. Ken Norton Jr., when he sort of flips his bag over of rings, you're going to have recruits' attention. And I think if I were Chip, if I were Martin Jarman, I would really channel Ken Norton Jr. to say, hey, you're going to be a great linebackers coach. We need you in terms of defensive scheme. But you know where we really need you is on the recruiting trail with your phenomenal personality, with your phenomenal pedigree. And let's go out there and show folks what UCLA is all about. Ken Norton Jr. is a massive hire. And when you talk about an individual who is in the UCLA Football Hall of Fame, everyone forgets because of his ties to Pete that everyone thinks he's an SC guy. He's born and raised UCLA. And so to do it from the heart, from your alma mater with all that success, that is flying under the radar. That could pay massive dividends if Ken Norton Jr. reaches his potential of being UCLA's coach.
And just a family of winners. His dad was a heavyweight champion of the world, man. I mean, that is the coolest title in sports coming from a boxer. I mean, that's as good as it gets. And his success is not an accident. Like, this guy finds his ways in winning situations because he's a winner himself. So I'm really excited to see what he could potentially do there. You brought up the Pat Riley story. Nobody is cooler than Pat Riley on the sidelines with the Armani suits coming out. It makes me wonder, are you watching Winning Time? HBO.
No doubt about it.
I knew you'd be watching it, man. So I read the book Showtime by Jeff Pearlman. So I've been anticipating this show coming out. We haven't seen Pat Riley's character yet. I believe that's going to be episode 2. Adrian Brody, Oscar winner, going to be playing Pat Riley. You got John C. Reilly playing Dr. Jerry Buss, man. I mean, he's and the guy who's cast as Magic. I mean, you could not cast a more lookalike.
Rub my eyes over and over again there, Will. That was incredible. I mean, that's it. It's fastly becoming. I mean, I'm so biased being an LA guy and sports guy, Laker guy, Dodger guy, Ram guy, UCLA. But it has all the makings to be a phenomenal show, and it's HBO. So HBO never produces something that isn't top notch.
Man, and just Adam McKay, I'm such a fan of. If you look at his history, I mean, this guy was a writer on SNL. He was doing like Anchorman and like just movies with Will Ferrell. And then he's really kind of branched into this more drama-filled stuff. He's done a hell of a job with that. I'm the biggest fan of Succession. That was one of my favorite shows. And then he did, The Big Short, which was one of my favorite movies of the past decade. And now he's doing Winning Time with you give me drama-filled basketball with Adam McKay doing it. I was like, listen, just get me in front of a television. I don't need to hear anything more. And just watching the first episode, I'm like, this is going to be a hit show. Enough with the tangent about the Winning Time. I'm sorry, I had to bring that up to my fellow basketball lover, Madman. We talked about irrelevant stats with the Combine. Here's one of them, but it's still incredibly impressive. Sean Ryan had a 33.5 vert. That is the height that Kyle Phillips jumped. And Madman, this is going to freak you out when I tell you who has a higher vert, or Sean Ryan has a higher vert than specifically. I looked this up. He has a higher vertical leap than Lamar Odom, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Karl Malone at 6'4", 321 pounds. I don't know how this helps you as a lineman, a vertical leap, but it does show some of the explosion that we've known Sean Ryan to have. He tested very positively in that. He had they're saying his arms are too small, so they're going to try to potentially move him to guard, which I don't agree with. I saw this guy play left tackle, and frankly, he was among the best, if not the best left tackle within the Pac-12 among this time. You can move him to guard, but don't fix what's not broken for me. He's doing a hell of a job there. You could tell me about the wondrous, vertical leap, but I want to hear your take. Do you think we should move him to guard or keep him at tackle? Because no, I'm firmly at tackle with Sean Ryan.
No, you have to keep him at tackle there, Will. And again, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier on Draft is in Session. His moxie, his sort of understanding of the nuance of the game, and his comfort level is at the tackle spot, and he's had several years of probably the best tackle training you can have when you have a live wire like DTR to block for. And, when a vast majority of the plays break down, become improvisational, almost backyard sandlot type plays, it really tests your gap integrity and your discipline when you're talking about pass blocking. And then similarly, in a Chip Kelly zone read offense, and Chip, over the last couple of years in big games, got very conservative with consecutive run plays. And so you would have these sort of sequence of plays where, remember, everyone forgets LSU game, Dulcich's touchdown. That came off of 14 straight runs. Who's responsible for those 14 straight runs there is the big uglies up front. And so Ryan has had to deal with, these long stretches of just run. and then having to deal with the live wire that is DTR from a passing game perspective. So to change him to a guard makes absolutely no sense. And again, Will, I don't really understand sometimes the evaluation process. I mean, what are you guys, NFL GMs? Or you're trying to, do choreography for cats, or you're trying to sort of fill out a Broadway show. I don't understand. The guy's arms are too small. Then Kenny Pickett's hands are too small. I mean, what the hell's going on over here? You guys are NFL GMs, start acting like it, and so this guy on film production is an outstanding tackle, and he's going to make a team very happy. And another example of a guy that developed over the years with Chip and through the experiences of a Chip Kelly offense, again, is going to be a very quality NFL player.
Yeah, and he's helped build some of these lines. I mean, he was there when they drafted Lane Johnson as the right tackle for the Eagles, who's the best right tackle in football. He's a big part of Jason Kelce being what he is, the best center in football today. So Chip Kelly knows offensive linemen, and he's had nothing but praise for the guy, Sean Ryan, who, by the way, stepped on the field as an 18-year-old and was manhandling, guys that could legally drink out there. So, I mean, guy's an impressive dude all around. I'm really looking forward to Sean Ryan. The guy I got to talk about, interior offensive lineman. This dude, there's one thing that I look for in interior lineman, and it's strength. And Otito Ogbonnia did more than that. He had 31 reps, 2 were discounted on the bench press. He led all defensive players, period, in the bench press at 29. As a nose tackle, that's what I look for. Are you strong enough to do that? He clearly is. He was benching 225. Like me and you would do just like a easy cardio machine, like 30 pounds. I mean, it was just ludicrous how much this guy was benching at the combine. Ogbonnia checked the box for me. He pulled a hammy doing the, figure 8 drill, but I saw enough. I think this guy's a day 3 prospect, and I think whoever's going to pick him up, you've got a pretty steady nose tackle there for a guy that, by the way, I was doing some of the research on Ogbonnia. He has benched 440 pounds in college, and he squatted 683 pounds. He made, that Bruce Feldman list he does? I mean, your biggest college football freaks. He was on that list. And, just 35-inch arms, that's kind of what you're looking for. I don't really care about that, frankly, but, like you said, these guys are trying to be GMs because Mike Mayock became one eventually, so they're going to do all the little things that they can to, grade these players. Could care less about the arm length, but the bench press was impressive. Otito Ogbonnia was a third-day prospect. Am I right?
No question about it. And, Ogbonnia, was so huge for UCLA over the course of his career. Everyone knew even last year, even when Odigizua was really the star of UCLA's defensive line, everyone knew Ogbonnia was kind of the next guy and probably a guy as a defensive line prospect that was as good, if not better. And, what I love about him is he's a run stopper. He can sort of fill in so many different gaps from a defensive line perspective. But again, he's got, lateral quickness as well. And it's not just a pure brute strength game. He can sort of, for a man his size, his ability to sort of turn laterally is very significant. It is above average. There's no question about it. I think with him, he got into a little bit of trouble this year at UCLA. Pad level got a little bit high. Sometimes the knees were not always well bent. They weren't always kind of completely, he wasn't creating sort of those right angles and those perpendicular angles with his bends, those soft bends in his knees. So technique was a little bit raw. But again, that's all very coachable. And for a day 3 prospect, what you're really looking for at that point is upside. And no one has, upside at that position day 3 the way Otito Ogbonnia has. And so I completely agree with you. I think that's going to be another name that's going to get drafted to UCLA. It's going to be a big weekend for UCLA Bruins. I think we're going to have 4 to 5 guys getting drafted. It's going to be a significant day for the Chip Kelly era at UCLA.
And we've had guys that have been drafted recently, like Josh Rosen going top 10, Jonathan Franklin, different backs coming through there. Odigizua last year, but I think as a complete, team coming out, at least the players that are coming out, this is the strongest I've seen as a fan that
Yeah.
covers UCLA. So I'm really excited to see some of these guys. Unfortunately, the guy that didn't perform well was Quentin Lake. He ran his, like I said, 40 time. Doesn't matter to me, but I'm just ranking it with the other safeties. His 40 time was dead last with the other safeties. And then he didn't participate in much of the other drills. Did some like coaching up where he was just kind of going through the motions and was just, kind of slumming it. It wasn't his best performance. But, Quentin Lake's not a combine guy. He's a guy that you throw out on the football field, has the instincts and, the ability to make plays at a high level. And no 40 times going to tell me that. It's what happens between the lines. Are you afraid? Are you not afraid? Do you know what it takes to make a big play over the middle? And he clearly does. Quentin Lake, you turn on that film, he's an NFL player. Unfortunately, I think because of this, they're leaning towards maybe an undrafted free agent out of the draft. But sign me up for Quentin Lake if I can't get him as a draft pick, because I know at the very least this guy is a depth guy that I could bring in if something happens to my starting safety, if something happens to my starting nickel corner. This guy can come in and just make a series of plays that's going to be beneficial to my team moving forward.
Well, no doubt, and it doesn't surprise me that Quentin Lake didn't perform great at the combine, because Quentin Lake's game at the safety position really is twofold. It was his length and his ability with his sort of long arms to be able to sort of close the gap and be able to disrupt passing lanes, and then also be in position where he didn't have to cover as much ground too close. So, there's three things that you can do as a safety: great closing speed, great length, or from a pre-active standpoint, be in a position where you don't have that much more ground to cover. And really it's the latter two things is what Quentin Lake is very good at, and where he found a great deal of success while he was on the field at UCLA. Unfortunately, those are not clearly testable things at the combine. And so I think, frankly, when you are late day 3 prospect, late 6th, late 7th, you're in a much better position to go undrafted, because then you can sort of dictate where you want to go and try out, where a team is thinner at your position, and where the probability of success of potentially making the team, getting through camp is much higher. So I don't think it's the end of the world for Quentin Lake. I think his ceiling was always going to be kind of late rounds. And, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world at all that the combine wasn't a great reflection of his true ability, because now he has the agency and the empowerment to sort of dictate where he wants his journey to begin.
Yeah, and it's a great point you brought up. I'm a huge fan of the Football Life series that NFL Films does, and they had the Romo one where he was an undrafted quarterback coming out, and he had two options. I think it was the Denver Broncos, and it was like $25,000 more for an undrafted free agent at that time, but he knew he could make the Cowboys roster. He was, looking, he's like, Bledsoe's there, but there's not really a strong backup candidate. I could be that guy. And the way he dictated that, he went all in on his opportunity with the Cowboys. And I mean, the rest is history. He turned into a very above average starter in the NFL, made multiple Pro Bowls. And for my money, he's probably the best color commentator in the NFL today. I love Romo. Great dude. But I think, Quentin Lake, future's bright for him. I feel like we're going to hear his name multiple times. I just got that gut feeling that this guy is going to be making some plays on Sunday. Man, Madman, this was a lot of fun. We had to go over the combine, guys. The transfer portal's looking bright. We got maybe the Morris twins of college football coming to UCLA and the Murphys. This is going to be a fun year, man. We're reloading quickly. We got starters coming in for UCLA. Fans, stick around. We're going to be doing a lot more fun stuff. Like and subscribe, LA Football Network. We have some incredible names coming to the network. Madman, if you don't want to spoil anything, you don't have to, but you could tell them who we got for USC. I was very excited to hear about it, even coming from the Bruins side myself.
Well, we've got two really great names that are going to be joining us at the LA Football Network, a Bruin great and a Trojan great. And, that's what makes the LA Football Network so special, because we represent all of the iconic football teams in LA: Rams, Chargers, Bruins, Trojans, and the great Brian Price
Yes.
2009 Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year is going to be joining the network here soon. And we're getting Brian spun up. And so very excited to have him. And he is going to be talking about not just football, but life after football and all of the issues and the topics and the subjects that are pertinent for former players and for fans to get an understanding from a wide variety of dimensions, social, financial, family, well-being, mental health. Brian Price is an exceptional human being and a real philosopher, and that's going to really come to light over the course of his podcast. And then the other sort of great LA legend, Trojan fans will remember him as a two-time Pac-10, Pac-12 all first team selection. One of the only players in conference history to be, first team at linebacker, first team at safety. The great Sua Cravens is going to be joining the LA Football Network here over the summer. Thrilled to have him and what he's going to bring to the show, a different flavor, a different candor, and a different style. And so both of these legends are going to bring so much to the network. And, the sky is just the limit for LAFB moving forward. So tune in to the Bruin Bible, but also tune into our family of podcasts at the LAFB, because there's going to be something for everyone, in 2022. And we're so thrilled about it.
We've got some great things coming up, too. We're going to be covering Sua Craven's 7-on-7 camp, so stay tuned for that. A lot of ESPN 150 players coming there. A lot of USC legends going to be a part of this. Some NFL legends coming through. It's going to be a hell of an event. LAFB, man, we are trying to lock down this community and give you guys the content that you want. We're trying to be the Howard Schnellenberger, so to speak, or what he was to Miami. That's what LAFB wants to be to the LA community, man. So
Will, you're just on fire tonight. Let me just tell you, between the basketball show references, you're throwing in Schnellenberger, you're giving me a little Adam McKay. You're just giving it to me all tonight, my man. I mean, unbelievable.
I don't know if I could top the Coach Carter reference we had last podcast. That was pretty damn good. But, man, it's just always fun to, be podcasting with my main man, the Madman in the Cut. Guys, much love, Bruin Bible. We are officially out. Stay tuned for more content. Not every week, like we said, but we're going to try to get to you guys as much as we can. Bruin Bible, we